Arthur Schopenhauer play dumb. You'll never want to be smart. Hide intelligence. Have you ever felt punished simply for being clear-minded? Intelligence, though revered in theory, often sparks silent resentment. In reality, it isolates, unsettles, and inadvertently becomes a quiet accusation against the complacency around it. In this video, we explore why society quietly punishes those who think too deeply. Drawing insights from Arthur Schopenhauer's profound observations, we'll journey through the hidden pain, the silent strategies for survival, and the quiet power born from isolation. You'll see why hiding brilliance behind humility isn't weakness, but wisdom. And, more importantly, how choosing silent resilience over shallow victories helps you reclaim your inner freedom. If you've ever felt alienated for thinking differently, this reflection is for you. Stay with us to uncover how true intelligence isn't about dazzling the world, but about nurturing an unbreakable peace within. When intelligence makes you a target for punishment, imagine being the smartest person in the room. You offer an outstanding solution, expecting recognition, but instead receive cold stares and forced smiles. Have you ever felt punished simply for your clarity of thought? This world, paradoxically, does not always honor intelligence. Sometimes brilliance becomes a silent accusation, provoking discomfort and even alienation. The sharper your mind, the more you risk becoming a thorn in the side of the insecure. A world mired in ignorance often demands that the wise bear loneliness and misunderstanding as an inevitable price. But what if that pain is only the beginning of a deeper growth? What if rejection is not a failure, but an opportunity to cultivate silent strength, to learn how to love yourself even in isolation? Perhaps in that coldness, a more resilient, freer self is quietly being forged, one that no longer craves external validation. In this chaotic world, true intelligence is not meant for display. It is a quiet light, guiding you through the alleys of judgment until you find an inner awakening, stronger than any applause. Arthur Schopenhauer, a lone traveler amidst a sea of the unaware. Arthur Schopenhauer was not just a philosopher, he was a living testament to the tragedy of intellect in a world unwilling to confront the truth from a young age. He recognized the unbridgeable gap between inner clarity and the ignorance surrounding him. Schopenhauer did not merely endure isolation, he was eroded by it, tested by it, and ultimately transformed it into his most precious asset. He observed the world and saw a bitter truth. Intelligence often creates distance rather than connection. The intelligent are not always welcomed. They become mirrors reflecting others' mediocrity, unintentionally awakening envy and resentment. When you see the true nature of life, you also lose the sweet illusions that the crowd clings to for survival. Schopenhauer's youth was not filled with praise, but with indifferent stares, cold shoulders, and even attacks from those once close. Yet within that profound loneliness, he discovered a treasure, the ability to stand on his own without needing validation from anyone. What he left the world was not just a philosophy of suffering, but also a quiet reminder. There is a power born from accepting loneliness. There is a freedom that only arises when one no longer needs the crowd's affection. And there is a profound awakening that appears only when you have the courage to face life's raw truths and still walk forward with a heart free from resentment. Schopenhauer did not abandon that lonely path. He walked it silently, like a traveler among the sleeping masses, carrying the flame of knowledge not to illuminate the crowd, but to warm his own soul. Why intelligence sparks secret envy? Why is intelligence something that should be admired so often met with hostility? Schopenhauer pinpointed the truth. Because, for most people, their self-esteem cannot withstand standing beside a light too bright. When someone effortlessly displays superior intelligence, even without boasting, it wounds the self-image of others simply by existing. The intelligent person reminds others of their limitations, an unspoken accusation they instinctively resist, rather than gratitude for expanded vision. The natural reaction is envy, resentment, or even quiet retaliation. Schopenhauer wrote that nothing is more precious to a person than their own intellect. Thus, anyone who threatens that pride, even unintentionally, must bear the burden of suppressed hostility. The price of clarity, therefore, is not just loneliness, it is the constant risk of being a target for unspoken hatred. The clearer you see, the more you provoke the instinctive defenses of those unwilling to change. But realizing this is not a call to bitterness, rather. It invites a new level of awareness, understanding that rejection, coldness, or even attack often have nothing to do with your true value. They are merely natural reactions from minds not ready to face the light you carry. Once you understand this mechanism, your heart softens. You no longer need to retaliate or harbor resentment. You simply continue to shine quietly, knowing that what is truly valuable is rarely immediately applauded. A familiar story, when excellence becomes a crime. Imagine a young girl in school, brighter than her classmates every time the teacher asks a question. She answers naturally and accurately at first. She is met with admiration and praise, but over time, a subtle shift occurs. Friends begin to whisper behind her back. Admiration turns into irritation. Giggles echo every time she raises her hand. The girl, once confident in her intellect, starts to doubt. She doesn't understand why her correct answers alienate her. Gradually, to be accepted, she learns to hide her brilliance. She pretends not to know, hesitates before speaking, and chooses to shrink herself, trading her natural brilliance for so-called harmony. This story isn't confined to classrooms. It's a microcosm of what Schopenhauer saw in life. Intellect, rather than connecting people, often isolates them. People don't hate you because you're wrong. They hate you because you're right in a way that makes them feel small. And to survive, the wise sometimes have to learn a painful lesson. That truth, if not handled delicately, can be perceived as a crime by the crowd. Yet, on a deeper level, this lesson is not just about social survival, it's about compassion. When you see the weakness hidden behind a mocking glance, you realize that dimming your light is not about fear, but about kindness. True maturity isn't always about shining brightly. Sometimes, it's about shielding your brilliance so others don't feel left behind. And that marks the beginning of a deeper awakening. Learning to be wise without isolating others, strong without causing harm, and resilient enough to walk through a world not yet ready for truth. Wounds from the closest ones. Schopenhauer's painful lesson as a young man. Arthur Schopenhauer endured one of the deepest psychological wounds, not from the world, but from the person closest to him, his mother. In a bitter letter, Johanna Schopenhauer harshly criticized her son, not just for his character but for his intellect. She said that Arthur's excessive intelligence overshadowed all his other good qualities, and that he isolated himself by criticizing and hurting others without realizing it. For a young man craving love and understanding, those words were like a dagger. They confirmed his deepest fear, that his intelligence wouldn't bring him love, but isolation. Yet from that wound, a different kind of growth began. Schopenhauer realized that intellect cannot save a hardened heart, nor can it beg for acceptance from those unwilling to face the light he carried. And that pain, instead of making him bitter, honed a view of humanity that was sharp, yet compassionate. Wounds inflicted by loved ones are often the deepest, because they strike at our most fragile needs, to be seen, valued, and loved. But Schopenhauer, through his experience, taught us that healing does not come from changing others. It comes from changing how we perceive, understanding that rejection sometimes says more about others' limitations than about our own worth. And when we stop demanding understanding from those who cannot offer it, We step into a new freedom, freedom from the need for approval, freedom to grow, and freedom to love ourselves, even when no one else does. Intelligence, the most dangerous gift in the eyes of society. There is a bitter irony that Schopenhauer pointed out early on. In the eyes of the crowd, intelligence is not seen as a gift, but as a threat. While wealth and status easily garner respect, intelligence, an invisible asset, is often regarded with suspicion, even hostility. People easily admire external symbols like money or power because they are tangible, measurable, but intelligence touches the deepest limitations within each soul, making people feel exposed, insecure, and vulnerable as a result. Those who possess great intelligence, even without any intent to show off, often find themselves isolated as a natural defense reaction from others. Schopenhauer realized that society can forgive many things, but it struggles to forgive intellectual superiority. The mere existence of a highly insightful person involuntarily dims others, forcing them to confront the deficiencies they would rather bury. And in that instant, envy and silent hostility take root, not loudly, not openly, but persistently and almost irreversibly. However, this also opens a profound door to self-awakening. Once you realize that your intellect will not always be welcomed, you stop seeking validation from the crowd. You learn to let your intelligence serve your own growth, rather than using it as a tool to earn praise. In doing so, you free yourself from society's endless cycle of evaluation, approval, criticism, applause, and rejection. In this world, intelligence is not for flaunting. It is a quiet lamp that illuminates your path through long, lonely nights. And sometimes, the most precious gift that intelligence bestows is not admiration from others, but the peace that comes from knowing you stand firm, even when the world turns away. A survival strategy, hiding your intelligence behind a simple mask. When intelligence becomes more of a burden than a glory, Schopenhauer proposed a bold survival tactic. Hide your brilliance under a facade of simplicity, not by making yourself ignorant, but by restraining your light, letting it shine only where truly necessary. He emphasized that in a world filled with fragile egos, openly displaying intellectual superiority is akin to painting a target on yourself. To avoid becoming an enemy in the eyes of the crowd, the wise must sometimes wear the mask of innocence. Pretend you don't know everything, smile at absurdities. Instead of arguing, use simplicity to soothe others' pride. This is not a betrayal of intelligence. It is a conscious choice to protect yourself and preserve harmony in environments where true brilliance is unwelcome. This action requires inner fortitude to forego immediate recognition, to endure being misunderstood without defending yourself. Demands more strength than fighting for every small victory. It is the strength of someone who knows that true value does not lie in appearing superior, but in quietly mastering oneself. By doing so, the truly wise are no longer drawn into meaningless battles. They choose to stand aside, observe, learn, and only intervene when absolutely necessary. In this silent foolishness, they do not grow weaker, they become stronger than ever, being underestimated as a silent shield of protection in a world of fragile egos. Being underestimated can sometimes be a priceless gift. Schopenhauer understood that when others do not see you as a threat, they lower their guard, they open up, revealing their thoughts, vulnerabilities, and opportunities you would never witness if you appeared too sharp. Being underestimated allows you to move freely through social spaces riddled with envy and silent competition. When people don't perceive you as a rival, you can navigate lightly through battles that preoccupy them, while you observe, plan, and prepare for truly meaningful advances. Schopenhauer called this strategy tactical humility, the art of feigning simplicity to shield true strength not to deceive, but to protect yourself from baseless attacks and the petty jealousy that exists everywhere. The most important point is, you do not lose yourself by allowing others to underestimate you. You are simply choosing not to reveal your full depth. Being underestimated does not diminish you, it liberates you from the burden of constantly having to prove your worth. In that silence, in that outward humility, you quietly gather strength, observe the timing, and prepare for decisive moments. And when the time comes, you won't need to engage in noisy battles. You will simply stand up, reveal a glimpse of your true self, and the world will be astounded. From David to Hamlet, when feigning madness becomes the ultimate wisdom, the tactic of feigning simplicity, even madness, is nothing new. Some of the sharpest minds in history have used it as an invisible armor. The story of David in the Bible is a vivid example. When faced with danger, David pretended to be insane to escape hostility from a stronger enemy. What appeared as weakness was, in fact, the height of survival wisdom. In Shakespeare's immortal play, Hamlet dons the cloak of feigned madness by pretending instability. He conceals his true intentions, causing his enemies to lower their defenses and reveal their fatal weaknesses. That madness did not diminish Hamlet, rather, it gave him a decisive advantage in a world roiling with deceit and conspiracy. Schopenhauer understood that in everyday life, too, it is not always wise to reveal your clarity. Sometimes deliberate simplicity or apparent foolishness is the best protection. By not exposing the full extent of your intellect, you maintain your position as a calm observer, free to act strategically rather than react defensively. Feigning foolishness, in this context, is not a betrayal of oneself. It is a strategic art. A truly wise person knows when to show sharpness and when to wear the harmless mask of innocence. Once you grasp this, you no longer feel the need to fight every small battle. You learn to pass through the world's traps and scrutiny with a quiet serenity born of hidden wisdom. This is true strength, a silent, concealed, yet invincible power. How to apply the art of playing dumb in the modern world today. Even without royal courts or sword battles, Schopenhauer's art of playing dumb is more relevant than ever. It is crucial in a modern world brimming with competition, fragile egos, and hidden power plays masked by polite appearances. Imagine you are in a meeting. You can easily spot flaws in your superior's plan. You could fix it, improve it, and do better. But if you rush to showcase that sharpness, what you might receive is not gratitude, but coldness and an invisible distancing. Rationally, they may know you're right, but their wounded pride will quietly register you as a threat. Schopenhauer reminds us, intelligence need not always be displayed. Sometimes knowing when to hold back, when to stay silent, is a sign of mature strength. Instead of correcting immediately, you might choose to gently suggest improvements, or let others discover their own mistakes, allowing them to save face and preventing yourself from becoming a target. In the modern world, playing dumb does not mean denying your intelligence. It means applying it with greater finesse. It is about choosing the right moment to reveal brilliance, about making others feel safe around you, and knowing that sometimes a temporary retreat is a long-term victory. More importantly, when you master this art, you realize true wisdom lies not in always being right, but in creating peace within yourself and for those around you. Sometimes, the greatest victory is to refuse to fight. In a world where ego and self-assertion are excessively glorified, choosing not to engage in meaningless battles becomes a mark of superior wisdom. Schopenhauer emphasized, not every fight is worth joining. Sometimes, true victory comes from choosing silence, from refusing to argue with those who are not truly ready to listen. You could prove yourself right, could win an argument, but what would you gain in return? Hollow pride, subtle alienation, and an unnecessary enemy often. In trying to assert ourselves, we isolate ourselves. Building invisible walls, we later have to bear alone. Schopenhauer understood that it is not always necessary to correct others or expose every illusion, for a simple yet profound truth remains. People do not live by reason alone, they live through emotions, pride, and the private dreams they need to survive. Choosing not to fight does not stem from weakness, but from being strong enough not to seek trivial victories. You understand that inner peace, freedom from the need for validation, is far more valuable than any fleeting applause. When you stay silent before the unnecessary, you are not losing. You are preserving your precious energy for what truly matters. And in that silence, you grow not by overpowering others, but by conquering the impulsive urges of your own ego, building enduring influence through strategic humility. True influence does not come from showing off, nor from public victories. Schopenhauer pointed out that the most lasting power is built quietly through humility and a deep understanding of human nature. When you abandon the need to prove yourself everywhere, you create a safe space for others. They no longer feel threatened, no longer need to defend themselves against you, and it is in that space that your influence seeps into their lives, not through imposition, but through respect, empathy, and steady presence. This kind of humility is not about belittling yourself, nor pretending weakness. It is about consciously stepping back to let others rise. It is allowing others to shine without feeling overshadowed. It is helping them see their own value instead of forcing comparisons. The truly wise understand that the deepest influence does not come from dazzling moments of brilliance, but from planting seeds of trust, patiently, through humility and persistence. A gentle word, a nod of agreement, a timely silence. These seemingly small acts can profoundly change how others perceive you. Ultimately, when you no longer need to win every small debate, you realize you have won something far greater. You have built a resilient self, a quiet but enduring influence that does not need noise to be recognized. Maintaining inner peace. Not every battle is worth winning. On the journey of maturity, Schopenhauer consistently taught one lesson. Inner peace is more precious than any external victory. Not every battle deserves your energy, emotions, or dignity. There are debates you could easily win, mistakes you could easily point out, but if the cost of being right is wounding a relationship or making others feel small, is the victory truly worthwhile? Maintaining inner peace means being strong enough not to react to every provocation. You understand that every time you feel the need to prove yourself, you are surrendering a part of your inner freedom. And in this noisy world, the one who can smile and let go is the true ultimate winner. Not reacting to misunderstanding, not flaring up at provocation, is not about resignation or weakness. It is about protecting your most precious treasure, the tranquility of your soul once nurtured. That tranquility becomes a sustainable source of strength, allowing you to walk through life's storms with a steady heart and serene gaze. And when you no longer need to win every petty skirmish, you are truly free to win the greatest battles, the battles within yourself. The peak of wisdom, hiding yourself among the foolish crowd. Schopenhauer once emphasized a paradoxical truth. In a world chaotic with superficiality and shallowness, the truly wise are not those who flaunt their light, but those who guard it as a silent treasure. Hiding oneself is not an act of fear, but of understanding that too much brightness can hurt others' eyes. Flaunting intelligence rarely leads to learning it. tends to provoke defensiveness, envy, and distance. But when you are humble, soft, like a hidden stream beneath the canopy, you become a silent force, deep enough to reshape even the hardest things. The peak of wisdom is not making others bow in acknowledgement. It is no longer needing anyone's validation. You quietly observe. Learn, accumulate, and offer your gifts not for self-affirmation, but because kindness and wisdom have fully matured within you. In this noisy world, the truly strong are those humble enough to walk among the crowd without shouting that they are different. They know that silence and the right kind of concealment are the safest sanctuaries for deep souls. And it is in that silence that they find freedom, the freedom not to shine for validation, but to shine from the deep peace within, healing the wounds of isolation, rediscovering silent self-worth, being misunderstood, envied, isolated. These are the silent wounds often carried by the intelligent, but Schopenhauer revealed another truth. These wounds are not signs of failure. They are invitations to journey deeper within, where true worth no longer depends on the gaze of others. Healing is not about seeking public acceptance. Healing is learning to accept yourself even when the world turns away. It is the patient journey of building an inner worth that knows you do not need anyone's permission to exist fully. Loneliness, when embraced with self-compassion, is no longer a burden. It becomes a sacred space where you remind yourself, I am whole. Even in silence, I am valuable. Even when unrecognized, each rejection, each misunderstanding is not proof that you are wrong. It is an opportunity to return inward, to listen to the quiet but steadfast voice within. And in that silence, you heal, not by changing the world, but by ceasing to force yourself to be loved by it. The outside world may never fully understand you, but as long as you understand and love yourself, you have found the most silent and most enduring victory, living quietly but greatly, when intelligence no longer needs to prove itself, when you no longer need to prove your intelligence, no longer need to win every argument. A new kind of freedom unfolds before you. It is the freedom to live according to your own way, no longer dependent on recognition or judgment from anyone. Schopenhauer taught that the wise do not shine to be admired. They shine because it is their nature, and that light needs no external validation. It burns quietly, humbly, but unyieldingly. Living quietly is not abandoning the world. It is choosing to influence through steady presence, silent action, and compassion toward even the lost souls. You do not need to shout to make a difference. You simply persist in walking your path, guarding the inner light the world so easily tries to extinguish. On this path, the true meaning of life gradually reveals itself, not to conquer others, not to seek fame or status, but to perfect oneself, to love more deeply, and to become the most complete version of who you are. When intelligence is no longer a burden you feel compelled to display, but becomes a serene current nurturing your actions, your words, and even your silences, that is when you reach the most silent and exalted summit of existence. To live like a lamp, not because others see it, but because it is what you were born to be. There are great values in life that announce themselves with no noise, that need no acknowledgement. They grow silently in the moments when you choose understanding over judgment, patience over argument, perseverance over seeking the spotlight, and in that silence, you quietly build an unbreakable power, the power of a truly free soul.